evening and welcome to SVG-TV's news for Wednesday, August 11th, 2021. I'm Triska Campbell with the details. The rebuilding of homes for volcano-displaced persons commenced today on lands identified at Orange Hill in the red zone. This is according to Prime Minister Dr. Gonsalves, who on radio this morning said that they are moving apace with a planned with the 27 homes to be built.
Today, they're starting with the foundations for 27 houses in Orange Hill, while at the same time, because all the materials have now been gathered, including materials which we ordered here in St. Vincent and also from Tanquil in Jamaica, that we're going to be doing, in fact it has started already, level 1 and level 2 repairs.
Building material from the region would have arrived over the weekend, and Prime Minister Gonsalves asked for patience of some people who may not be able to get building materials, as priority has to be given to schools and other immediate repairs.
I just want to say that persons outside of the red zone and the repairs, I just want to say that persons outside of the red zone and the orange zone where we have had damage from the SOUFRIERE, and people who are in shelters, and particularly from the red zone north of the dry river, that persons who have housing requirements elsewhere, like some materials they want, please just give a little forbearance, because we have to have a little patience there, because we have to deal with those who are in the shelters to get them out so that the children can get back to school.
At a recent news conference, Minister of Housing Orlando Brewster indicated that the preliminary assessment stated that over $20 million worth of damage was sustained to homes in the red and orange zones. He said thus far there is a total of 553 homes identified with some level of damage sustained. Speaking on the restoration of utility services in the red zone, Prime Minister Dr. Gonsalves said that the Central Water and Sewage Authority, the CWSA, and the St. Vincent Electricity Services Limited, VINLEC, have made steady progress.
But the pipes are now being laid, maybe another week or so, week and a half. The area served by Sandy Bay, like for instance, Overland and Magum, the pipes are being laid there now. I've been advised work is being done on the water system in Sandy Bay, in Oya. So you notice we are moving in stages in a systematic manner. The electricity would be returned. The electricity it appears as though is less problematic than the water in terms of what the extent of the damage was done and for the restoration to take place. Of course, in the case of the electricity, we have to make sure that the houses to which the electricity is being reconnected, that those houses are fit to receive the electricity, obviously.
With the erupting phase of the SOUFRIERE volcano now said to be over, scientists will focus their attention on aerial remapping. So says lead monitoring scientist Professor Richard Robertson on radio today. According to Dr. Robertson, he will spend less time giving updates on radio, as there will be nothing new to report daily. Since the volcano has basically gone quiet, Dr. Robertson outlined some areas of work he and his team will be concentrating on over the next few weeks.
I'm having to be on the program all the time. I mean, I'm always been available and accessible, and I'm willing to be to speak to people. But as much as it cuts into what I would like to do, and what I spoken about what I would like to do while I'm here this time, which is essentially remap a lot of the areas on the volcano itself using a drone to do aerial mapping. Because I think it's critical that we get that information now as quickly as possible, as set down as possible, so that will then inform not just what the volcano has done, but it gives us a common knowledge and template about where the state of things are now, so that if, for example, things change in the future, we could have that to compare.
The lead scientist said the remapping of the volcano will not only help the Belmont Observatory, but the government when making decisions.
People who are in planning and who have to, the government, who have to think about what they do in that land, it will help them to get a more clearer view of what the land is now. And that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that by the time I leave, we'll have a good image of all the areas north of Robert Compton, all the villages mapped, as well as on this side, we're coming as far south as probably Chateaubelair. We did Chateaubelair and Fitzhughes yesterday. So you'll essentially have images of the whole landscape where people live. And then I'm hoping that we'll go up into the valleys so that we could then use that for modeling our hearts. And if we have time, I'll go up to the summit and do the same kind of thing. So that's going to take a little while. We're out in the field every single day. 7 days a week.
Dr. Robertson is also the consultant working with the team that will map volcano hazard areas, which will make some areas inhabitable. Meanwhile, the lead monitoring scientist said an outreach program will be carried out island-wide. Dr. Robertson said one of the scientists who was on island a few months ago, Stacey Edwards, started the work, which will be continued by another scientist from the United Kingdom.
So it's really a plug for you to participate as members of the public. I believe they're going to be in Kingston area, not necessarily her, but her colleague Lara Mani from the UK, talking to people, basically conducting surveys. We want to find out essentially how we did in terms of the outreach, what worked, what didn't work, so that we could improve that for future eruptions, island summits, or in other places.
Giving an update on activities at SOUFRIERE, Dr. Robinson said there is nothing new to report as there have been no changes or occurrences. Taiwan Ambassador His Excellency Calvin Ho handed over 2 containers of supplies to the National Emergency Management Organization NEMO to assist with volcano relief efforts. The donation was made possible by a Taiwan diaspora group based in the United States, the Simple Help Foundation and partners. At the handing over ceremony yesterday at the logistic hub in Arnesville, Ambassador Ho said that with 2,209 boxes, the donation is 4 times bigger than the previous one made by the Simply Help Foundation soon after the eruption.
When we joined the handover ceremony at that time, it was 20 food container supplies, and this time we have 240 food container supplies this time. The second part I want to mention is that the donor not only is the Simply Help Foundation this time. They jointly invite our very powerful NGO called SVG Foundation.
Ambassador Ho further added that the supplies are usually handed over to the Ministry of National Mobilization, but with the impact of the volcano, they decided to hand it directly to NEMO. He said that he hopes the supplies can go a long way in assisting the people who are suffering from the losses due to the volcanic eruption.
And we hope that these supplies can be made very good use to the people who are in need, who are suffering the eruption of the volcano. We wish to extend our best wishes for the people. They can soon return to their home and back to their normal life. And by saying this, on behalf of my government, I want to reiterate that my government and my embassy will continue to work with your government.
Minister of State with responsibility for foreign affairs and foreign trade, Senator Kisal Peters, said the non-governmental organization continues to assist the people of SVG in the form of disaster relief, vocational training, shelter, and care for the elderly.
In May 2021, the Simply Health Foundation, in collaboration with the Taiwanese Chamber of Commerce of Miami, the Suu Kyi Foundation, and the Junior Chamber International Taiwan, donated 11,000 surgical masks, 390 blankets, a range of baby products, and daily necessities. On July 15, 2021, Ambassador Calvin Ho celebrated the World Youth Skills Day with the Honorable Curtis King, Minister of Education of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, by handing over 10 computers and generators that were donated by the Simply Health Foundation. Following the aftermath of the explosive eruptions in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have seen true solidarity from various groups, locally, regionally, and internationally.
Director of NEMO, Michelle Forbes, who received the items, thanked the Simply Hand Foundation for the kind gesture. She also noted that NEMO has thus far received 3 containers of relief supplies through Taiwan.
We have received a 3rd container in country, and most of the stuff you're seeing here today are really from the 1st container, which we have already begun dispersing, especially the perishable stuff such as the food in particular, which have really gone to the Ministry of Mobilization for packaging for the families. Today we still have just over 1,500 persons in public emergency shelters, and we have now received the data. We had close to 20,000 persons, just over 20,000 persons who would have been displaced, and most of those persons, over 77% in particular, would have stayed in private homes. So while we do have a large amount still in emergency shelters, we need to recognize that the Ministry of National Mobilization has also been reaching out to those persons in private shelters. Hence, the supplies that have been donated through Simply Health Foundation has been a tremendous boost to our ministries that are really charged with distributing to the families.
Following its previous donation of a 20-foot container, the Simply Help Foundation partnered with the Buddhist Suu Kyi Foundation to provide 2 containers packed with 2,209 boxes of items for the displaced people affected by the volcanic eruption. In other news, Commissioner of Police Colin John has apologized to Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves for what transpired at the protest in capital Kingstown last Thursday, August 5th, and also for the injury the Prime Minister sustained. On the Beat program on NBC Radio on Tuesday, Commissioner John said the police personnel did not effectively fulfill their mandate on the day of the protest.
Apologize to the Prime Minister on behalf of the members of the organization for what transpired generally and what happened to him personally. I would be the first, and I think I'm man enough to publicly admit that the police on that day performed below par. The police, we were, in my opinion and from my observation, too tolerant on that day. We did not enforce the law on that day. Well, since then we have had briefing, and we have learned from our mistakes. We have seen areas that we did not come up to par, and would ensure that things of this nature does not repeat itself in the future.
The commissioner said what transpired on the day of the protest was very dark, noting that the protest in itself was also held illegally.
They did not seek authorization, or they did not inform the Commissioner of Police that they were going to protest. I would state the section later on as I make my presentation, but before someone can have a public meeting or a procession, they should inform the Commissioner of Police at least 24 hours before this public meeting or procession should be taking place.
Meanwhile, Commissioner John said that persons who took part in the protest in Kingston last Thursday, August 5th, and the organizers could be charged for breach of the Public Order Act 396, revised edition of the laws of SVG 2009.
No notification was given to me as Commissioner of Police of the protest action last Thursday.
Yes.
So therefore, the organizers and the persons everyone who took part in that procession or protest,
right,
could be charged for breach of this Public Order Act. And Section 6, let me just go on, to remove doubt. For removing doubts, it is hereby declared that no person has a right to hold a meeting in a public place. So persons will say, well, okay, freedom of assembly and all those things, but this act states that there's no right. One can say, well, it's my right to have a meeting in a public place.
Right.
That's what the Public Order Act said.
Okay.
The police commissioner said Section 5 of the Public Order Act gives certain instructions for persons who wish to hold a public protest or procession.
Notice of meeting or procession to be given. Subsection 1 states, any person organizing or concerned with organizing any public meeting or public procession shall notify the Commissioner of Police at least 24 hours before the time for such meeting or procession of his intention to hold such meeting or procession, and shall state the time and place proposed for such assembly, and in the case of a procession, the route proposed to be followed. It went further to say, providing that the provision in this subsection shall not apply to funeral procession. So funeral procession are exempted.
Exempted, yes.
Subsection 2, the organizers and any person who knowingly takes part in any public meeting or public procession held in contravention of subsection 1 is guilty of an offense.
Assistant Superintendent of Police John Balla further explained the Public Order Act.
Order Act, according to the legislation itself, according to the Act itself, it notes it is an act to prohibit the wearing of uniforms in connection with political objects and the maintenance by private persons of the association of military or similar character. Also to make further provisions for the preservation of public order on the occasions of public processions and meeting in public places. So in essence, this is a legislation really that we inherited from our colonial predecessors, well, or colonial masters, if you want to say that.
Yeah.
But the legislation had several amendments, and the last being in 1987.
Rebutting the claim that last Thursday's protest was illegal under the Public Order Act, lawyer K. Bacchus Batiste said, contrary to the Commissioner's assertion, the Constitution of St. Vincent and the Grenadines allows for peaceful protest without having to seek permission to do so.
The right to protest, the right to freedom of assembly and expression and conscience, and to protest your views dates back way before, even to the Magna Carta and the Common Law of England, which we inherited in St. Vincent wholesale. That's the basic thing. Our Constitution enshrined the right to protest, freedom of speech, and to assemble peacefully. And this from, I think it's section 9 to 12 of our Constitution protects these rights. As a matter of fact, the UN conventions that we have signed on to, like the European Convention on Human Rights, Articles 10 and 11 protect the right to protest.
In seeking to clarify the issue, Bacchus Batiste explained the proper application of the Public Order Act.
This Public Order Act that the Commissioner of Police is referring to does not deal with the right to protest. It deals with meetings held for the purpose of discussion of matters of public interest. There is a big distinction between, for example, the NDP applying to the Commissioner to hold a public meeting to discuss NDP matters and to get votes, or anybody else applying to hold a public meeting to discuss matters. A meeting is not a protest. They may try to widen it, but I'm telling you that that act specifically, in fact, that act is primarily concerned with quasi-military organizations. That is what the act mainly is concerned with. And it throws in public order. It deals primarily, as I said, with meetings and processions.
The veteran lawyer further explained the difference between protests, demonstrations, and meetings for which the act should apply.
Demonstrations and protests are completely different in that the freedom of speech and the right to protest peacefully, as I've said before, are protected from our common law, which we inherited from England, and the Human Rights Convention. Every individual, regardless of cause, has the right to protest or march or demonstrate in a public space. That is what the convention says. Now, the Act speaks about meetings and processions, not protesting and marching and demonstrating. And the Commissioner of Police is a lawyer and should be aware of this.
Bacchus Batiste said this is the second incident that the act is being misused, as she detailed the prior violation and commended assertion of the police commissioner.
They wanted to stop the front line from protesting and demonstrating in front of the electoral office. And they came up with the same act. And they try to say that you have to stay within 100 yards from public meetings, public places, and then they say you cannot protest except you apply. At that time, we looked at the law, advice was given. I myself, I think, held a press conference on it, and they had to debunk it. The Commissioner of Police knows better. Rav Gonsalves is a lawyer, and he knows better. I can bet you that he will never, the Prime Minister, open his mouth and say that persons do not have a right to protest except they apply for leave and for rights. He wouldn't say that. He wouldn't want his colleagues in the Caribbean to laugh at him. And it is disgusting the way our Commissioner of Police is prepared to take away the rights of our people for political reasons. It is disgusting, and every right-thinking intention should condemn it.
And in a statement issued this afternoon, Prime Minister Dr. Gonsalves sought to explain a parliamentarian's right to unhindered access to the House of Assembly. He noted that both at common law and the statute law, a member of Parliament has a right of unhindered access to and egress from Parliament as it presents, which are addressed in two pieces of legislation. The Public Order Act, Chapter 396 of the Laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and the House of Assembly Privileges, Powers and Immunities Act, Chapter 2 of the Laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The statement by the Prime Minister said these two statutes create criminal offences punishable by fines and imprisonment in important particulars of contemporary relevance given to the unlawful wounding of the Prime Minister and other egregious examples of illegal conduct by several protesters belonging to or associated with the opposition New Democratic Party, the NDP, in the demonstration meeting in front of the House of Assembly on Thursday, August 5th, 2021, during the sitting of the House. The Prime Minister noted that as a parliamentarian for over 27 years, whether in the opposition or in government, he has never known of a single case of a member of Parliament being hindered in going to or coming from the House of Assembly by any protester or assaulted, battered, or wounded by any protester. Prime Minister Gonzalez said while he believes that the general good behavior of protesters have caused successive commissioners of police to do police life, that is, policing with a light touch, the demonstrations of individual politicians and promotion of violence and bad behavior are new features of a crazy wing of or associated with the NDP who has become embroiled over the years after December 2015. The Prime Minister in his statement said the current weak leadership of the NDP has resulted in the metaphoric tail wagging the dog with dangerous consequences, and this foolishness, violence and wanton lawlessness must stop. He said in this regard, the police and all law-abiding citizens must put their foot down, and he himself will never allow the craziness and their fellow travelers to hinder or impede his access to Parliament. 23 Vincentian teachers receive a reading certification. This and other stories when we return with more local news. Stay with us. Welcome back. 23 primary grade Vincentian teachers are among 150 educators across 6 OECS countries to receive certification for the completion of the OECS Commission-sponsored Certificates in Reading Instruction. The course, dubbed the Teaching of Reading in the Primary Grades, was executed in March of 2020 after being readjusted for online delivery due to the COVID-19 restrictions. During a virtual ceremony held at the Botanical Gardens yesterday, the Deputy Director of the SVG Community College, who served as one of the facilitators of the course, Dr. Karen Thomas, gave a brief overview of its content.
Our aim was to help participants to develop competence in the following areas: the practical application of skills, strategies, and activities for reading instruction in the primary grades, the use of approaches in assessing how students were learning to read, how they were developing, and how we could plan interventions for these students. Incorporated in this program also was the goal of getting teachers to use technology during their instruction and during assessment. One of the critical components of this program was to ensure that teachers were able not just to focus on what reading was about or what were the pillars of reading to be covered, but also to establish different ways in which they can motivate students to learn. So we wanted teachers to leave this program mastering the competencies that they should have in their pedagogical skills, and we also wanted them to demonstrate how they were implementing these newly learned strategies or strategies that were being revised in their respective classrooms.
Congratulating the teachers was Chief Education Officer Elizabeth Walker, who noted the Ministry of Education's continued commitment to eradicating illiteracy within our education system. She noted the ministry's aim to have every child read at or above their grade level.
This program, operated under the Ministry of Education, offered a tremendous boost to our education system through the 7 components: curriculum enhancement, a draft language policy on the home language, teaching learning resources, teacher training, school improvement, student assessment, and professional development for teachers. The local ELP team worked tirelessly to improve reading in the classroom, especially by offering high-quality training for teachers in the area of literacy. Today, on behalf of the Ministry of Education and National Reconciliation, I proudly extend heartiest congratulations to all 23 teachers, the worthy recipients of certificates of achievement and participation from the Eastern Caribbean Joint Board of Teacher Education.
The teachers also received a hearty congratulations from Minister of Education Curtis King, who reiterated the government's commitment to quality education.
I must remind persons that the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is committed to quality education that is accessible to all and lifelong. It is therefore critical that those who are charged with the delivery of education have the capacity to deliver that quality education. And it is within this context that we should see this wonderful activity this morning. I want also to commend you, the teachers, yourselves, because in difficult circumstances, you will nevertheless be able to put all those challenges behind you and not only give your commitment, but demonstrated that commitment by completing this very important course.
CSEC students across SVG came out today to sit the mathematics exam. Unlike students in other Caribbean countries who completed the CSEC exams in July, special consideration was given to Vincentian students following the eruption of La SOUFRIERE volcano in April. The local students started the exams in July. Mathematics, which is one of the compulsory subjects, was written today, and some students of the girls' high school were excited to get it over with.
It's easy than I expected. From the constant practice we had, it was very good. I think I got a grade 1.
Well, we did a lot of past papers, so it was quite easy, but some questions they changed up the wording, so it was questioning.
It wasn't like that bad. You just had to practice, and you know, some of the questions repeated themselves. Expecting a grade 1.
Most of the questions came back on different past papers that we have practiced, so confident about passing it.
There were some questions that were quite difficult, but it was easy than most high school exams.
Maths was great.
We already did theatre arts, so we don't do
a lot of questions.
Maths was okay.
Social Studies was written this afternoon, and tomorrow morning English General, which is another compulsory subject, will be written. The students we spoke with said they were happy with the opportunity given to them to return to school for face-to-face teaching, and while there were challenging times, they feel they were prepared well for the exams.
Prepared well. Yes, we were out of school, but I think I had enough time in the art stream, but science is my best. English, I'm preparing quite well, and I'm ready for tomorrow. I tried my best.
It was very tiring. Very tiring.
Okay, but and I know English is tomorrow.
Yes, it is. I'm actually excited for English, because English is kind of my subject.
I have about 2 more to set next week, and that's it. Finish. English was yesterday for me, and that was quite easy too.
Well, I had a lot of help from our teacher, so it was okay.
I find JHS exams are harder so far.
Based on CXC's timetable for St. Vincent's and the Grenadines, the final exam will be done on August 20th. The St. Vincent's and the Grenadines Community College, SVG-CC, has launched its solar photovoltaic installation course aimed at encouraging education and skill enhancement of Vincentians in renewable energy technology. The course, which commenced on Tuesday, August 10th, 2021, was offered free to Vincentians through funding provided by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. It will see the participation participants being exposed to solar photovoltaic technology, installation, operation, and maintenance over a 5-week period. At Tuesday's opening ceremony, program coordinator and lecturer Rafiq Brown lauded the Vincentian public for its heightened interest and response to the course, stating that it was reassuring to see Vincentians interested in exploring more responsible and sustainable approaches to energy consumption as we work collectively towards ensuring the livelihood of the future generations. SVG's Secretary General for UNESCO, Janelle Harry, said UNESCO is committed to $17,000 US to the overall project, which in addition to a 5-week course includes a year-long implementation phase of the technology. Communications and Marketing Manager of the SVG Community College, Theodora Kirby, encouraged participants to take complete advantage and reiterated to the participants that as the first group to access the opportunity, there will be a benchmark by which the success of the initiative will be assessed. 20 participants are enrolled in the program, set to end mid-September. Upon completion, each would be eligible to sit the Northern American Board for Certification Energy Practitioners, a PV Associates exam. As SVG and Taiwan celebrate 40 years of diplomatic relations, the ties continue to bear fruit for SVG. On Monday, the Taiwan Embassy handed over 40 oxygen concentrators to the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment. In a statement read at the handing over ceremony, Minister of Health, Wellness and the Environment, Sinclair Jimmy Prince, said the remarkable relationship between SVG and Taiwan has also contributed significantly to the development of the island's health sector, with the evidence seen in Taiwan's strong support for health infrastructure projects development and its annual medical mission. Minister Prince further noted that the fruitful cooperation and friendship also span environmental protection, public health, and Taiwan's significant resources contribution to assist SVG to combat COVID-19 while strengthening the national response to the pandemic. The ROC's ambassador, His Excellency Calvin Ho, said the contribution as allies is to help solve together the challenges faced by COVID-19 as lung congestion is a main factor of the virus. Referencing the recent volcanic eruptions, Ambassador Ho said he feels very proud of the resilience of the people of SVG. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Cuthbert Knights, expressed gratitude to the government and people of Taiwan for their contribution, noting that as people, we should not lose sight of Taiwan's contribution to our national development, especially to the health sector. Administrator of the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital, Grace Walters, was present at the ceremony and said the donation received will be used at the healthcare centers island-wide.